Exactly after the hour of 8 o'clock, and it is Thursday, and that means we're going to be chatting with Dr. Computer, Alex Newman. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning. How are you
And
doing today?
yes,
It's a fine April 1st, so be careful out there. Any news that you get, take that with a grain of salt because, however strange these times are, people can be very creative with the news. So,
yeah, and I think if just over a year ago somebody said, "Yeah, everybody's going to be locked down for a year," right? Yeah, joke, right?
yeah, I mean, we have to take into account that March seems to have lasted a week and a year at the same time. So, it's pretty
Absolutely.
weird.
We were just talking because Yasmin was showing me a photograph of the jam of traffic already leaving the city.
Yep.
I don't know. I can't get my head around this. We have a pandemic. We have discovered now 7 cases of P1, which is the Brazilian strain,
Mhm.
and we're letting everybody go to the beach.
It's not that we're letting or not because people are going to do what people are going to do. It's the fact that we are willing to go to the beach in spite of, all the mountain of evidence that this is not a convenient time to do so. So, I'm staying home. I'm fine. My family right now is mostly staying home. The only person visiting somebody else is somebody who's already been vaccinated. So it's really something that we're taking into account. A lot of people in our families are health workers, so we're even more aware of all the different restrictions and all the care that you have to take. But still, it's surprising. It's surprising in both bridges, from what I've heard from
Mm-hmm.
friends on the networks. They're both full of people just going out of their way to get out of town. And it's not only now. I know a lot of people actually took trips last weekend just to spend the entire week outside of Panama, wherever
Mm-hmm.
they were getting their travel permits to. In fact, I'm wondering if some of them will have issues coming back. I hear that if you're Panamanian, you shouldn't have any issues, but people visiting some countries right now might be having a hard time coming back, especially from South America. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what the situation is, but if you're planning on traveling to or from Panama right now, it's a good time to check on sorry, all of the restrictions and all of the guidelines right now because that might be changing because
Mm-hmm.
of that strain that you mentioned.
No,
So
no,
we can't let our guard down. That's
no.
the
And
important part.
this is a little bit, Alex, what worries me is the fact that we're doing well. We've got figures down in the one that I always worry about is the number of people that are in intensive care because they're the ones, sadly, that are unlikely not to make it. We've got our numbers down. We were in the 3% of positivity cases in the report yesterday, and our vaccination rollout is very slow. It's consistent, but we're only getting small batches at a time. The amount of the population probably vaccinated is less than 10% at this time. And I'm just scared that we are going to be silly and take a retrograde step. I just hope everybody's as responsible as we are.
I certainly hope so. I mean, I know that compared to some of the other countries in the region, we are a little bit ahead. But as you said, it's still slow. It's like they're crawling and we're walking when we need to run.
Mhm.
So hopefully it'll pick up soon, and I hope the authorities are doing everything they can to make that happen as soon as possible. I mean, we really want to have like a regular Christmas party. I mean, I certainly miss going to the breakfast show Christmas party. So who knows? Maybe we'll have one this year. I mean, that
I
isn't
hope so.
virtual. So
Mm,
I
I hope
certainly
so.
hope so.
And well, just remind everybody, please, 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 for the sake of yourselves, the sake of your families, the sake of your friends, and the sake, of course, of our country, please, 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 be careful. You always wear your mask. Make sure if you've got a face shield, wear that as well. keep washing your hands. But most importantly, Alex, as I keep telling everybody, if you treat everybody else as if they're going to give COVID to you, and they treat you as if you're going to give COVID to them, guess what? Nobody will get it.
Yeah. Or if you want to be a little bit more altruistic, treat yourself as if you had it already and be careful about spreading it to others as well.
Mhm. There we
So,
go.
so yeah, there's that. Now, a lot of us are spending a lot more time at home, and
Mhm.
people have been fixing their pipes and getting their, their carpets in order and everything else. And people are running out of projects to do at home, and so they start saying, well, what can I do to improve my home now, where is where I get most of my entertainment. I mean, I know that Godzilla versus Kong is in theaters now, but those of you in the audience who have HBO can also get it on HBO as well, which happened the same with Wonder Woman 84 and all sorts of movies coming out on streaming services at the same time, at least for the time being. People are getting educated at home, both young and less young, either for school or for improving their careers. And people are also just working at home. I mean, you've worked at home for a long time now, and
Mhm.
I've been working from home for the better part of a year and a half now. So definitely, it's something that people are thinking: how can I make my home a little bit of a nicer place to live, work, play, and learn? And that's where the smart home technology and smart devices come in. A lot of people, like you and I, for example, have had these devices. I'm not going to mention her name. These Amazon branded devices that help us with a lot of the things that we do online. They can get they can check our calendar. They can tell us what the weather's going to be like. They can do a lot of things. But once you tie them together with other devices in your home and your ecosystem, then it gets even more interesting. I know that, for example, you have had one of these Amazon devices for some time now.
This,
Have
this, this is
Mhm.
this is a test, isn't it? You want to talk about, these devices in our home. We're talking about putting our home on all the. You want me to talk about this for another, 25 minutes or so without mentioning that name, don't you?
I think that's a pretty good challenge. I mean, we wouldn't want people to, let me unplug this one, have a problem if we say something like, Alexa, order 10 toilets. So,
And the thing is, anybody that just happens to have the radio on, because this has actually happened, that somebody in the
it
state
has. It
um,
has.
had that exactly that kind of thing, saying, you know, order me so and so, and of course, all these devices that were listening to the radio as well
Mhm.
went off and ordered it.
Yeah. In fact, I think I heard something about a book hitting the bestseller list because somebody said that on the air. And all of a sudden, all these devices started rushing to buy copies of this book, which was then returned. But for a brief, fleeting moment, that author got, a bestseller listing on Amazon because of that. So we need to be careful. So I'll try not to mention the code word, as often. So the thing is, we've got all of these devices now, but we're tying them together with other things. For example, in your home, have you installed any smart light bulbs or smart sockets
Well,
and so on?
well, I've got I've got sockets all over the place, and I tell you what, just to say, because I can't remember the name, so I'm not going to be advertising it because I don't have it at hand. But what surprised me, Alex, was that I went into Stephen in Multi Plaza the other week, and I had to
Mhm.
go to the home department upstairs. And as soon as I walked out of the elevator, what did I see? I saw a little stand, a little, one of these sort of made of it, selling all these devices. And I've been buying my plugs from them at what I consider to be a very reasonable price. They cost me $10 each.
Not bad.
Uh, no, I mean, this is it. And they were so easy to set up. They're working fine. They're also selling the different devices. Um, Alexa, how many devices do you have?
Sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
No, she's useless.
Yeah, I think you have to tell her to scan for new devices, and then she'll say something like, I haven't found any new ones. There's 17 devices connected right now, or something like that. Or there's a page on the Amazon webpage that you can actually check for that on the Alexa device. Say, hey, I said Alexa. Never mind. So the thing is, a lot of these smart plugs are out there, and they're not expensive, as you say, and you can find them in the places where you'd least expected, like one of those department stores. I mean, they are so mainstream now. I know that, for example, Farmacia Arrocha has a couple of them as well, and a couple of other devices that can be commanded by these smart speakers and digital assistants and so on. Now, the ones that I haven't seen so far at these department stores, but I do see at some specialty stores, like the hardware stores in Panama, are, for example, the three-way switch. You have one in the hallway, one in the living room, and well, those are a little bit harder to find, and you can probably find them for around $30 to $40 or so. And most of them work by replacing one of the two with a smart switch so that you can toggle it from wherever you are. So that's one alternative. Now, the smart plugs that I've appreciated a little more when I've used them are the ones from Wemo called the Insight switch. They are not only switches that you can turn on and off with commands either from your voice or whatever, but they also measure how much electricity a device is using, which in and of itself is really useful. If you calculate whatever your kilowatt hour rate is, which probably hovers around 17 cents an hour or something like that, you can also tell it to monitor when the consumption spikes. And this is important because if you have something like a washing machine that isn't smart, you can tell the Wemo Insight switch to let you know when the consumption goes down to next to nothing when the cycle ends. So you can be working, at your desk or whatever, and have an alarm set that when the duty cycle is ended, you can know right then and there. You can get up and put it right into the dryer right away. And same thing happens to the dryer. The dryer will start its cycle, and when it ends, you can finish and then pull the clothes out and hang them so you don't have to iron them. For example, just to give you an example, you can also tell, for example, if you're a parent and you want to know when your kids turn on the video game console or something like that, you can monitor that as well. And you can turn it off remotely. So there's also that. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do with these Insight switches that will allow you not only to, turn things on and off in a smart way and time them and put them on timers and so on, but you can be a little smarter as well about how much electricity you consume in your home. And that makes all of this stuff pay for itself. Speaking of stuff paying for itself, I noticed that you always have to open and close your blinds. There's a system called My Smart Blinds that hooks up to, the blinds in your rooms and is solar powered, so that you don't have to find where to plug it with a electrical cord or whatever. And what it does is it allows you to do things like basically turn the blinds on and off, or turn them in a certain angle or whatever. Or you can do things like, if the sun is out, then make it a little bit shadier, or if it's at night, then open them up, or depending on the temperature, you can turn them a certain way so that you save on electricity on air conditioning, so that if it's cloudy out or if it's raining or whatever, you can open them up and it's not going to make your place any warmer, and vice versa. So that's another piece of smart technology that you can look for in the home. I haven't seen them locally, but you can get some of them off of the usual places like Amazon and everything else.
Because the thing is, to bear in mind, I mean, from an entertainment perspective, with these devices, you can listen to the radio anywhere in the world. To give you an example, Alexa, BBC Radio 2.
BBC Radio 2 from TuneIn.
And you can listen as if you're in the UK.
Yep, exactly. Now, it's interesting. Yeah, let's tell it to stop. Otherwise, we get a copyright strike from YouTube when I upload this. So the thing is, you can also say, so-and-so, listen to listen to Cool FM 89.3. And you can also listen to us on the Alexa device. Never mind. I said it again. So the thing is, you can do that, and you can also set things like they call them scenes or routines or whatever, depending on which device you're using. That with a certain phrase or a catchphrase, you can do several things at the same time. For example, if I say, "What's her name? It's bedtime," I've got it programmed to say, "Good night to you, and good night to Lilu, our husky." Good girl, and so on. And then it dims the light to 50%, sets the light to a reddish hue so that it's more comfortable on the eyes, and it turns on the air conditioner, which is done through one of these. Let me see if I can grab it off of here. It's about the size, for those of you listening on the radio, it's about the size of one of those compact powder things that some people use for makeup or whatever, or a little bit bigger than an Oreo cookie and about the same shape or so. And it's an infrared device that either uses known codes from known manufacturers or learns codes from manufacturers if you have the original remote. And you can use it to turn anything that has an infrared remote with. So, for example, I can use this little hockey puck to have so-and-so turn on the air conditioner, set a certain temperature, and so on. And I can time it. So, for example, at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., when the room is cool enough, I can just turn the air conditioner off automatically, for example. And I can set scenes. So when I say it's bedtime, it'll turn on the air conditioner and it'll dim the lights and then and turn off the TV and whatever, and do all of that from a single voice command. So you can say something like, "So-and-so, honey, I'm home," and, have certain things turn on and off and everything else. So that's another thing that you can integrate into your smart home. Now, all of this stuff is interesting, but there are other aspects to smart homes, like security, for example. There's the Ring Doorbell Cam, which I use. And one of the great things about that camera is that you can see it from some of these Amazon branded devices. So you can say, "Hey, what's in the front? Who's at the front door?" And if you have one of those Fire Sticks or Fire Cubes on your TV, you can actually listen to it on the TV. You can see the person at the door on the TV and even speak to that person using the Amazon remote. So that's another interesting thing. You can use it as a communications device. You can also communicate with other people who have the device, who are in your contact list and who you've given permission to contact you, and use it like you would right now. We're doing this over Zoom. You can converse with other people using your Amazon branded devices. So that's another interesting thing that you can do with these home security devices that include things like security cameras and things like that. I don't know if you saw the one from Ring that came out recently, of a new security camera that's on a small drone that sits on a bed, and you can have the drone travel to the rest of the home looking for things. I mean, I, for one, welcome our robotic overlords, like the Terminator movie.
I'm not sure I want one of those flying around the house.
Yeah, that's going to be trouble. I mean, I would be worried because my husky, anything that moves or whatever, squirrels or birds or whatever, she'll want to follow around and play with. So I would be afraid for that drone's integrity if it were here. Now, speaking of dogs, there are security cameras that are meant for pet owners, where you can put treats on them and you can talk to your pet, and you can shoot treats at them or whatever when they do things or whatever to at least calm their anxiety. I mean, this is very useful for people who work outside their home, whoever they are. But it's interesting because, for example, I could have one. I don't have one, but I could have one when I'm like in this room right now and my dog's outside the room and I don't want her to come in, but I don't want her to be anxious or whatever. I can just shoot some treats her way and, play with her in that sense. Speaking of other security items, I don't know if you've seen that some hardware stores here in Panama have been selling remote smart locks and home security systems that you can turn on and off. You can issue codes to friends and family if they need to come in and do something or whatever, and you can retire those codes. These are very useful for especially those in the audience who live outside of Panama City. I don't know if you remember that in Panama City, at least, and I think Colón as well, Airbnb owners are limited to renting over 45 days or so, something like that, I think. But outside of Panama City, I think that limit's lower. So if you live in places like Coronado, San Carlos, and everything else, and you have, for example, a room that you rent out or a house that you rent out or whatever, smart locks are an interesting option because you can issue codes to your tenants and whatever and retire those codes, so you don't have to fiddle around with keys or anything physical that you have to exchange or whatever. So that's an interesting thing to do as well. You can set up a smart lock that still works as a regular lock with a key if power's out or the battery runs out or whatever. Usually the batteries last for months and charge in an hour or two. But still, it's a good thing to know that they can be opened and closed with regular keys. Most of us in small apartments and whatever have these split air conditioning systems and so on. But some people with larger homes have centralized heat or air or whatever. And there's also thermostats. I mean, I think you remember the Google Nest thing that they bought over and whatever. They also make thermostats that are smart that you can set up with your existing system. And the great thing about these is you can turn them on and off, you can monitor, and you can have smart settings that have to do with, for example, if there are people in the home or not. You remember IFTTT, or if this, then that. I believe you were one of the early users of that system. One of the great things about having these smart devices is that you can use tools like IFTTT, which you can get from ifttt.com, so that, for example, when you come into your home and your phone is in a certain geographic area, or if your phone connects to your home Wi-Fi, you can set up rules to say something like, turn on the lights or greet me at the door or things like that. I used to do that with my Christmas tree. Whenever I came into the home, my Christmas tree would turn itself on for like 15 minutes or so. So when I opened the door, oh, what a cute Christmas tree all lit up and whatever. And it would turn itself off 15 minutes later. I wouldn't have to remember to turn it off afterwards. And also saved a lot of electricity in the process. And if anytime, for example, everyone in my home leaves the geographic area of my home, which is less and less often these days, but it does happen, I have a rule that says turn all the lights off. So even if I forget to turn off a light, it will turn off automatically without any issues. So there's also that. I mean, it kind of pays for itself eventually with all of the stuff that you can do.
It's worth remembering as well. I mean, two things. Firstly, I mean, you can put the app for what's the name on your phone, so you can control everything as well from your phone, so you don't have to be at home. And the other thing with that, of course, is that I have in my car, and I think you do as well, Alex, which is the one that you can put in your car.
I mean, there's one that you can put on your face. The Amazon Echo frames. These are the Echo frames, and you can get them on Amazon. They come with blank, just transparent glasses, and you can get your prescription filled out locally. And I'm showing them to you on screen, but I'm going to describe them for our audio audience. They have speakers on the legs of the frame, so that even when I'm wearing them, I can listen to what the speaker is saying. I can listen to the radio. Everything that I can do with a smart speaker, I can do with this. And just with a touch, I can pause. I can swipe like this to get my messages. I can also give it commands and everything. And I'm just wearing it on my face. And
Mhm.
I use them a lot when I'm walking my dog in the park, because I can listen to, for example, Cool FM in the morning, and at the same time, I'm listening to sounds around me, so I don't get surprised by somebody, bumping into me, or a motorcycle or anything like that. That if I had, the big in-ear or over-the-ear headphones, I wouldn't hear that. So it's very beneficial. Also,
Mm.
I can walk around and make calls and receive calls and everything without pulling my phone out of my pocket, which I could drop or anything like that. So it's very convenient. I think one of the last things that I wanted to mention today before we run out of time is smart vacuums and smart mops. That's one other thing that's made my home a lot more livable. I mean, right now the Roomba is probably doing her job. I can't hear it right now because the door is closed. They're pretty quiet, even though they're pretty strong, in the cleaning support and everything else. And the great thing is that you can program them and just, let them do their job. They have sensors that sense what parts require more cleaning or whatever. And you can actually tell the Roomba uh, sweeper to tell the mop when to start after you've swept the whole floor. So after the sweeping is done, automatically the Brava mop is going to take over and then mop the whole place and keep it all clean. And not only dust free, but dog hair free, which is the most important part. I mean, my dog sheds about, I don't know, 2 pounds of the stuff every day or something like that. So there's a lot of cleaning to do. And the great thing is that it's got its own base that when it's finished, it just pulls out all the garbage and everything, all the dust, into a bin that you can then replace after a while.
Mhm.
And you can even get reusable mop parts for the mop as well, so you don't have to use as much of the material. So they help you a lot and they save you a lot of time. So it's one of those things that's also nice for a smart home. I hear that they're coming out next year with one for the garden, like a tiny lawnmower, but a Roomba-sized lawnmower that's going to do your lawn and whatever. That's going to be interesting as well.
I mean, it's great because there'd be no reason for us to get up in the morning.
Except to listen to Jerry's show.
Well, you can do
Except
that.
you,
You can do that.
exactly,
You
exactly.
But no. I mean, the thing is, I must admit, you do get rather lazy is not the right word. But when I was thinking the other day, because I have a number of switches through my sort of lounge on every kind of light. So, like you said, you can give an instruction like turn on all lights, or but go to bed. We just say turn off all lights, and it'll just shut down all the lights that are on. But then you can tell them to do it each light individually. And this is on the sort of the balcony area with the strip lights, the colored strip lights or whatever. And I was thinking to myself the other day, if I wanted to turn all these on manually, how long is it going to take me? So you do get sort of rather complacent to it, I suppose. But no, I mean, I think it's great. And I was thinking the other day, like um, integrating with what's her name? I was thinking of that movie with Bruce Willis, the one was in the future.
Fifth Element.
Yeah, Fifth Element, and the way he comes in and he talks to the wall and it plays his music or it gives him news or whatever information, and that's the stage that we've got to. And I guess the thing is, because we know how it works, it's not science fiction. It's science fiction when you see these things, and of course you don't know how they work. So, cool. How can you do that? How's that going to work? Of course, now we know how all these things work. We come complacent to it. But if you didn't know, well, we're living in the future.
That is true. I mean, a lot of the times people say that movies like that are not science fiction. There's kind of science speculation or speculative fiction. I mean, you're kind of taking what you already know and trying to project it in the future. And trying to see, I mean, one of the first concepts of an iPad was in the movie 2001 in 1969. You can see them handling like a pad with whatever. You can remember Captain Kirk in 1968 in Star Trek had little slips of plastic that looked like floppy disks that carried many, many millions and millions of bits of information. We use them as SD cards on our phones right now, and they're the size of a fingernail. And things like the tricorder, things like the med bay beds. I remember reading that Gene Roddenberry was approached by the Pentagon because they were working on remote sensing telemedicine devices back then, and they were wondering if he had heard anything from anybody who might have slipped some of this information of what they were working on. And it's funny because a lot of the times the devices that Dr. McCoy used to scan people with were like modified versions of the salt and pepper shakers from the NBC commissary that they just, grabbed and painted a different color and then just pointed it at people and said, "My God, Jim, this man is dead," or something like that. So, and then it's interesting how it becomes speculative fiction, but then we usually think that this is going to be 100 years, 200 years, 50 years in the future. Then 5 years later, it's being, you can buy it on Amazon. So
another nice thing, I mean, if you've got a family, a big family, a reasonable size house or whatever, you can tell it to just make an announcement, and that'll go through all the speakers in your house. And one of the things we like to do on a Sunday when we're at home is that we do play BBC Radio 2, and we tell it to do it on the Everywhere group. And what it does then is it plays that for you on every single speaker in the house. So you can literally walk around the house and you've got your music everywhere. You don't need to put these things in the ceiling anymore or things like that. So and you do get very used to using it.
Oh, and not only BBC, any music you want, or even ambience. You can tell it to play things like sounds of rain or sounds of the sea. And, you can take that vacation in your mind.
That's very right. That's another thing you see. If you take ill, you can tell it to call you an ambience.
That's like a French ambulance. It goes, wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo.
No, I heard actually, because in the area we live, we have a large Jewish community, and they do actually have here, which I think is great. I saw one actually in operation yesterday. They do have their own ambulance service. And I always joke that when they're going around the streets, the siren goes, "Oi vey, oi vey." And yes, and good Passover to our Jewish listeners as well. But no, I mean, I think they're great, and it's not as difficult, as complicated as I think people might think. And I'm gonna look into the infrared one you mentioned, because that's what I've been thinking.
I'll send you the link so you can share with your audience as well.
Yeah,
and it's been very useful. You can turn on anything with an infrared remote.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking, because one of the things I wanted to control was the air conditioning.
That's interesting, because you can tell it to, set it to 26 Celsius or whatever imperial units, you have it set to. But there's that. Now, one of the things that can get complicated is the Wi-Fi part. That's why I recommend people look into improving their Wi-Fi. A lot of people out there have 10-year-old, 15-year-old routers, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the latest ones that have either Wi-Fi 5 or Wi-Fi 6, also known as the AC and AX standards, they do a much better job of sharing all the bandwidth with all these devices. Absolutely. Which is not that they need a lot of bandwidth. It's kind of a death by 1,000 cuts situation. If you have an older router that can handle maybe a lot of speed, but not many simultaneous connections all going like, is there anything for me now? Do you need me to turn on or something? I mean, there's a little bit of traffic, and all that drip, drip, drip is not handled as easily by older routers. So I, for one, recommend the Linksys Velop system, and it works not only wonderfully well. I have one here in my home office, and I have one in each bedroom. But the way that they mesh together without losing any bandwidth makes it so that you can enjoy your bandwidth for your streaming or for anything around the home, and at the same time have all of these devices talking to each other and to the cloud without any issues, especially if you have things like home security cameras, where having a good connection is important, especially if you're outside the home. So make sure to get something good in that regard.
All right. Well, Alex, as always, thank you very much. Alexa, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. And so it's goodbye from her. It's goodbye from Alex. And well, I'm going to be here until 10 o'clock. So as always, Alex, thanks so much for spending time with us.
Good night, Gracie.
Good night, John.